So yeah, all right, we're at Cherry Springs 2023 here, and this is Bill, and he has a podcast all about light pollution, the effects of light pollution, and trying to kind of raise awareness, right?
Definitely raise awareness. So the podcast is Light Pollution News, and each month go out there and feature articles and research that happened in the prior month and discuss them and bring them to light, and have guests on that can help illustrate maybe their importance or maybe some perspective on the actual topics that come up in those articles.
Yeah, because a lot of how people feel about lights, is their background, the way they're raised. And I was telling you about Hawaii, how on Hawaii Island, people are like, well, you don't want to turn on lights on your property because people will see what you have to steal, and just a different kind of mentality that, it's hard to build, but it's something you got to start somewhere.
A lot of times I think people have a visceral fear. We had a podcast interview today. We had an episode for June, and the guest was Scott Morgan, who works here at PADCNR. And what he was talking about, he made a great reference to why some areas kind of embrace the dark, other areas are terrified of it, other areas are ambivalent to any kind of lighting or darkness. And it was a culture. And you think about it, you grow up in a well-lit area or a very lit area, and you don't think about anything being dark because you've never had that experience. You've never known what life is like outside that. And conversely, if you're in an area, you grew up in rural America, you're used to darkness. You experience it. You at least experience it at some point. Even if you have a barn light out back, you can still experience darkness at some level. So there are many different perspectives. It's something that hits not just people, it's something that is heavily affecting our ecology. It's something that technology is changing how light works, how light pollution is generated or is not generated. You think about everything from the way buildings are designed to your car. The headlights and the rear lights are now a design point. So everything it affects nearly everything that you do on a normal day, and you don't even realize it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are really a million different ways that it could be brought under control, so to speak. I hate to say let's make government policy on it. Because that could be a hairy topic, but I know here's one I actually haven't, because we talked a little bit about light pollution, different ways it could be tackled. So many different corporations, especially big companies that are in manufacturing, are required to get certain types of certifications, whether it be ITAR certifications or I know some of the big ones would be the ITAR ones, which are inspection systems and a lot of those inspections deal with the environmental impacts that their business has on the local area. And why not just simply approach those certification networks that create these different certifications and say, hey, would you like to consider adding light pollution to one of the spectra that you guys control?
Yeah, I don't think light pollution has traditionally been at that level of, you think, water, air, any of those typical traditional tactile pollutants. Light pollution, instead, over the past 5-10 years, it's been growing in awareness, and it's been a real big topic for the past year and a half on the ecology side. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a little too soon to be able to go to a certification group and say, hey, how about you go ahead and add this because you want to protect the environment. You're going to protect it by using, by turning your lights or dimming them down at a certain time, or just having motion sensors in certain areas, which would be a great idea. You may be able to do that, but I think it's still a little premature. It hasn't reached full saturation on the question of whether light pollution is an actual pollutant, which I think and I believe, based on the ecological research we have, that it is a pollutant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the biggest thing, is seeing this stuff proved and seeing it studied, really, because we haven't seen hardly any studies done on this stuff, right?
Now, we've seen studies. We've seen studies, especially on how it impacts, like I said, the ecology. We've seen studies on how it impacts on how it impacts behavior. We've seen studies on how light pollution, it can be affect it, or how building design affects light pollution. So we've seen studies. Oftentimes, the ones that come to mind for humans is usually crime and safety, but it's not really looking at light pollution. It's not really looking at street lights. It's kind of looking at it's trying to parse out whether light is a variable or not, with the understanding that light is the prime variable. Which again, I don't believe that to be the case. I think when we look at human behavior and whatnot, light is part of that, but it's not the driver of how people interact.
Now, has any studies been done on water and fish, how light pollution affects fish? I'm curious.
Recently, I can't think of the name of the study off the top of my head, but I know in the past 2 months, it's become a new research topic. I can say coral. So corals, there's a recent study that is, again, these are the start of many places are just starting a research on how it affects different sea life and sea animals. For coral, the research has shown that it can actually disrupt the timing of reproduction, and coral need everything to be timed to the moon. So one of the things that happens around artificial light is that coral may release the what they need to release at different times, and the other coral may not be as receptive at that time because they may be in a darker environment where they're waiting for the moon to come up. So it does affect behavior. Again, it affects behavior of animals, affects behavior of people. It changes how everything behaves. So we don't think of light pollution as being a big issue to us personally because we live inside, and many people will just throw up the lights and go inside, and they have no idea what goes on outside. I think the average person probably goes outside, I don't know, 45, maybe an hour, 15 a day. So there's no mental connection in there, right? But it does. It affects everything.
That was a good answer on the fish. I thought I would stump you with that one.
Well, you're lucky I came across an article this month on that.
Well, here, let's talk a little bit about your rig here. This is what you brought to Cherry Springs.
Yep.
And
this is called the True Beginner rig right here. So I'm using a old Vixen ED80, and
is that a doublet or a triplet?
It is a doublet. Yep. And I have my autofocus over here. Got a 6D, a Canon 6D. Got this guy, a 60 millimeter guide scope, and then using the EQ Pro for.
Now, which version of the Air do you have? Is that the new 256 or is it the 32 gig version?
Oh, you know what? That's a great question. I'm thinking it's probably the newer one because I can get it far away. Like I can use my iPad, and I have no problems with it. I was actually right over here. There's a great Airbnb, and we were over here in April, and this was out in the field, and I was on the deck, just hanging out, and no problems with it. So
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. What guide camera is that?
This is the Planetary, the 290.
Nice. That's a good choice. Yep. One of my favorites. Now, are you using the intervalometer cable with yours to sync to the ASI Air?
Yes.
Just over USB?
Just over USB.
Just over USB?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm open to better options.
Well, I know we have a DSLR port on the side, but I've never seen it actually getting used. So, now one last question about your rig. So, did you change out the focuser yourself, or is that already like that as a GSO focuser?
This guy?
Yes. No, the focuser on the Vixen.
Oh, this guy? No. Okay, right. I'm sorry. Yeah. So the old focuser did not at all work. I had to get a GSO focuser because this guy had. This is from like 2010 or so. Okay. So it was before you even thought about having astrophotography the way it is now, and. Yeah, the old focuser, there's no way it was compatible with this guy, so I had to replace the complete setup right in there.
Nice. Well, Bill, thank you for talking to me. And
my pleasure, Ben. Thank you.
See you soon, maybe next year.
Yeah.